IVM. Inspiring is the story of a woman who broke all barriers and norms. A woman who had the courage to raise sons single-handedly to fight all storms. She tells the world that driving is a skill not restricted to any gender. Her son built a kitchen that saves time for women. His heart is warm and tender. She's fierce and powerful and is shining in her glory. He was inspired to wipe away tears and has quite a powerful story. She shattered stereotypes and inspires her didis to do that every day. He failed but stood up and put all his fears and onion tears at bay. This episode is dedicated to an enterprising woman who raised an enterprising boy. Joining us today are the lovely Revathi and Satyajit Roy.
Thank you.
Such a beautiful poem. That's awesome.
How are you doing?
Great.
We're doing very
Really
well.
lovely poem.
Welcome to yet another episode of Beyond Cliché. This is your host in those, Almas. I'm a writer, speaker, coach, changemaker, and I'm running a campaign called #TurnOffTheStereo, where I create awareness on breaking gender stereotypes. As a life coach, I also have a program called Jump Into Power, and I'm hoping to have a powerful conversation in the studio today. By the way, as a changemaker, I'm also running a campaign where I'm asking a leading diaper company to put the fathers on the wrappers of diapers. If you believe in the cause, please go sign my petition on www.change.org/PapaPampers2. I want to do due justice to introducing these two lovely people in the studio today. There's a mother-son duo. And this episode is special in a lot of ways. A lot of reasons, actually. One, because with me in the studio is my inspiration and mentor. And also family is what I call them. So I have the mother-son duo. So this time, for the first time on Beyond Cliché, we're bringing two guests on the show together. There's a single parent, a woman entrepreneur, and also an unconventional entrepreneur that has broken stereotypes. So today we have a lot of angles to explore. I'm really excited. So let me formally introduce the two guests on the show. Joining me today is the very inspirational and lovely Revathi Roy. She's also a change maker who's inspired so many lives and created livelihoods for so many women through her entrepreneurship venture. She's a powerful mom of 3 doting sons. And, I kind of know them, so I know that all of them have explored their inner calling. She's amongst the top 50 most powerful women featured in Fortune India. A trailblazer who's appeared on the cover of Forbes India Women Trailblazer issue. A strong panelist for many discussions with National Commission for Women. I'm not done yet. She also has a biography to her name. Who is Revathi Roy? What an apt name. We are here to find out today. Who is she? Well, she is the founder of India's first all-women instant parcel delivery service, Hey Didi. And let's talk about the son. Joining me in the studio is her son, Satyajit Roy. Satyajit, known as Onion. जी मैं प्याज की बात कर रही हूँ, वो वाला Onion. He is known as Onion Knight in food circles. Is the founder of EGK Foods, one of India's largest manufacturer of crispy fried onions. वही बिरिस्ता जो हम बिरयानी में डालते हैं, बिल्कुल. He is also a serial entrepreneur with interests in multiple areas and he is an IVMer. So with me in the studio is an IVMer who co-hosts a podcast called Paperback, a book recommendations podcast on the IVM network. To listen, okay? He also has a book coming up, Live, Burn, Learn. That'll be out this year. So long introductions. I'm going to take a short break here and we're going to come back and talk to the lovely mother-son duo with me in the studio at Beyond Cliché.
Advertising is dead. Yep, you heard me right. Advertising is dead. We're all in the content business now. Let's not call it news, TV, radio, etc., etc. It's all content, and we're in the middle of this weirdly exciting phase where all the borders and lines that have been drawn over decades has been swept away by this lovely thing called the internet. We're a show where we don't dwell on just the stuff that is now, but rather the wider stuff about advertising, media, content, and the whole goddamn circus surrounding it. Tune in every Tuesday for our weekly unboxing of the mystery box we used to call advertising. I'm Varun Dugirala, co-founder and content chief at The Glitch, and this is my new podcast, Advertising is Dead.
They say women don't drive and men stay away from the kitchen. You actually, Revathi, built a driving school and you, Satyajit, built a kitchen. So we'll start with Revathi. Tell us, how did you literally build an empire on pieces of broken cliches? You've literally broken like one of the biggest cliches that we have in our country. We have women delivering stuff on bikes and there are lady drivers. How did you break this cliche and how did you build this empire?
Yeah, so I think the word cliche really fits our, entire journey.
Mm-hmm.
More often than not, I'm always asked, a cliched question, but women are bad drivers.
Right.
To which I have a cliched answer, where I say that driving is not about gender, it's about skill.
Absolutely.
So I really have only this as one of my best skills that I own, which is driving. Because right from the age of 18 to now, about 42 years, I have been driving.
Right.
And I think you just feel the power when you sit on the steering.
Right.
It's like, you move where you want. It's not about the passenger who's sitting with you.
Right.
And that kind of fascinated me right since I was 18 years old. Because I used to see my dad driving and I would say, wow, he can actually just take the car to where he wants.
Right.
And slowly I became a rally driver. I started participating in car rallies and
That's amazing.
So far I've done about 85 car rallies, 180 of them.
Wow.
So that became my life. It's in my blood. Like they say, you're born to drive. So I'm kind of born to drive.
Wow. So Satya, I'm going to ask you something here. Do you, what are your early memories of your mom driving?
My mom used to not only pick us up, drop us to school, like not just us, like our friends, like we had 3 sets of friends throughout the years. So like when we had football coaching in the morning, cricket coaching in the morning, had to go to Azad Maidan, Cross Maidan, wherever the hell. We used to skate at one point. So we did a Bombay Panvel skating thing where we wake up at 4:30 in the morning.
So was it common to have mothers who were driving?
Mothers were there, but like my mom was probably the only one who was...
what was the feeling growing up, watching a mother who was probably driving car rallies?
It didn't kind of register with us when we were young.
Right.
I think much later on in our 20s and 30s, we've kind of had the realization that, hey, this is not what goes on in normal households. Or like, no one's mom is getting up and dropping them everywhere and picking them up from everywhere and all that stuff, right?
Our car was called a minibus. My car always used to be called a minibus.
On family trips also, like my dad used to hate driving. So he used to always happily hand over the keys to her. And she was always the person in charge or responsible driving. Make sure. And like, I don't remember. So now when you sit in other people's cars and all, we are so used to, like there's no going fast, there's no breaking of rules. And when you switch from that, then you go to college and then your friends are idiots. So it was a shock, like for a long time. But then...
Did you, by the way, did you learn your driving from your mum? By any chance?
No
chance.
No way.
You picked it up on your own, is it?
No, I went to driving school regularly. I learned. And the first time I took the car out, I banged it also.
See, so we are really talking about cliches. Also, we have Revathi, who's a rally driver, and he's saying I banged the car the first time I took it out. So from a mini bus experience for fun to now this fleet of women, what's the journey, Revathi? Tell us.
So... that time it was just dropping kids home and, while people would say that, but really women don't drive. But then you also realize that sometimes at schools you would see, rarely, not many, you would see some mothers being there to drop children.
Right.
Very few, but 1, 2 I would see. So you are actually allowing, on the one hand you say that they're not good drivers, but on the other hand the husband of the family is actually allowing their most precious thing, which is a child, to be dropped to school, and you're entrusting that little child with the mother.
That's such an insight,
who's supposedly not supposed to be a good driver.
Correct.
So, so I used to always feel, what's happening? But my creating this whole thing was not by choice, really. Because when my husband died and, there was really nothing that I could think that I could do. Because when he passed away, I was 47. I'm now 60. So at 47, for corporates to open the door for a job.
There's a huge cliche around age as well.
Virtually impossible. Because You can switch jobs. I mean, today corporates are, there are very senior people who keep switching jobs. But to get into a corporate for the first time, that was not, entry level was not at 47. Entry level would be at 20, 25, that's the age. So I started thinking, what is it that I do best? And I realized very soon in life that the only thing I do well is driving. So I said, let me become a cab driver. I mean, that's the only thing. And I'm a teetotaler. I don't drink and smoke. I'm good for dropping drunken friends home. And so I went to the airport and I asked for a slot and I got it. So it was, now when I think back, I feel it's so difficult to do that now. But that time, I don't know. I think I was just there at the right time, right place.
And you followed your instinct, like you
very well
said.
Instinct. I just said that driving will make me money.
Right.
So that's how I started. But I also, when I started, I didn't know that it would become so big. I just thought I'll survive, and I'll make sure that there's food in my house on the table for the children to eat and me to eat. So that's all that I really thought of. But I guess, when you're innovative, when you never say die, when you don't want to lose an opportunity to, do something. And survival is the only instinct that you have, because you're seeing your children looking up at you. What would they do at that age? So I think that's something which made me decide that, and I don't think it was a decision in the sense that I thought about it and then it was a decision. It just flowed. So I just started, a cab service for women, by women.
So from surviving to thriving, it's been quite a journey for you.
It is. And I think it's very... I always feel through my authorized biography that's been released by the same son who's sitting here.
Yes, we're going to talk about that.
So I think through the biography, if even one person and one woman gets inspired by that, and she's about to give up in life and she's reading this and she says, no, if somebody could go through this and stand up in life, then I think it's a job well done. So
absolutely. So back then, I'm sure there were a lot of cliches around being a single mom. And I'm a single mom too. And many a times you get to hear these things from the society. Apna pura attention bachche pe dalo, dekho tumhara beta hai, wo bada hoke tumhara sahara banega. And there's this whole cliche around you've got to ensure that you make your children stable, sustainable, and then they will take care of you. But what you've done is so inspiring, because you built yourself first. And you also built your sons. So that's a very powerful example.
So on the aircraft, they first tell you protect yourself, wear the oxygen mask yourself, and then the children. Then the other passengers.
Right.
So I think that's what I did. I had to sustain first and then make sure that the others sustain. If I sustained, and my entire ethos of my company has been that I will not beg people for money. If I make money, my girls make money. So which is why we decided not to be an NGO. We decided to be a for-profit company to make money and sustain ourselves. And that's exactly what we have done.
So Revathi, we're going to take a few minutes for the listeners of the show to know what exactly is your business, what do you do, and how can more people use your services?
So I started off in 2007 by being a passenger movement cab service, like any other aggregator, or But I soon realized that when the other big aggregators came into town, and pricing was really not doing good for us, because we're not here to lose money. And in the model that they work, I don't think there's money to make. So we realized that passenger movement was not going to do us any good. So we quickly realized that logistics is a huge market.
Oh, yes.
And I was reading a World Bank report which said that by 2020 or 2021, the logistics industry is going to be a $220 billion industry.
So there's great opportunity there.
So I just thought there's a huge opportunity with the same skill that I was doing, which was all about driving. In fact, I can introduce another vertical, which could be two-wheelers. Because what you see now as delivery people are all about two-wheelers.
Right.
So that's when we forayed into logistics.
Right.
Where we now do work for e-com companies, just doing deliveries. And it's amazing that we started with one city, then two cities. Today we are in 15 cities, over 1,500 girls.
Wow.
And we do four-wheelers as well, but the number is a little smaller for four-wheelers. And the girls are freaking out. I mean, they earn, all my girls earn north of 15 to 18,000 rupees.
Brilliant.
And they're all from the below poverty line, most of them. So for them to be able to own a vehicle, which we also kind of facilitate, to facilitate them to be able to, acquire a vehicle and an asset.
Right.
Is something so big that we are privileged. And we don't realize that this small thing can make their status at home so different.
Right.
And I think what we have been able to achieve is something very dramatic.
Absolutely. So in very lay person terms, there's a lady sitting at home who has absolutely no skill. You're bringing her, you're giving her a skill. She learns to either ride or drive, and then she gets a vehicle to own, and she's also got a job.
And she's also,
How phenomenal is that?
So there are two things that are very important here for the listeners, I think, because so there's a girl who's 18, 19, 20, 21, that age. And there are women who are married, who are or a little older in age. Now look at the girl who, unfortunately, today, in especially the lowest end of the pyramid, the parents are really looking at only getting her married because they don't want her liability. One more mouth to feed is not what they want, and that's the reality.
Oh yes, there's a huge cliche around women getting
that
married.
Shadi kara do, then she'll go to her husband and let her do what she wants over there.
Right.
Now, with what we are doing, we're actually increasing the marriageable age because what we have seen is a dramatic effect where because the girl is one earning and two has an asset, which can be used by the family after office hours.
Right.
The marriageable age has gone up.
See, that's why I called you a change maker. There's so much change you're bringing in the society. Fantastic. So, so if, a user has to use your services, have you started a B2C model yet that you want to talk about?
No, we don't want to do a B2C model.
Okay.
Because B2C is, it's a process where a lot of education is required. And we have so much business in B2B.
Right.
Right. I can employ, more than 1 lakh of women just doing this.
Lovely.
So we don't, we don't want to do B2C.
So all the listeners listening to this show, don't be surprised if you open the door and you receive a parcel from...
There are many now. I get a lot of calls and pictures from a lot of people, and we just tell them, send us a picture with the girl, and they're very happy to do that.
Fantastic. So that's quite a story about breaking stereotypes with Revathi. Satyajit, they say a good recipe for success is filled with fears and tears. But in your case, your success was built on wiping out onion tears.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So there's a cliche around men and tears. In fact, एक बहुत famous dialogue है, Pushpa, I hate tears.
I hate it, right.
And you seem to have taken that literally. So tell us about your journey. There's a story behind your venture, right?
Definitely.
What's the story?
It started in my house kitchen, where my mom very graciously has been making us our favorite mutton biryani for almost more than a decade. I don't know how long.
That's your Sunday ritual.
That's our Sunday ritual, tradition, whatever you want to call it. So that means Sunday mornings used to be filled with onion tears in our house, which we used to happily bear because the biryani was very tasty. So what happened one Sunday in 2014 in November was that I left my house at around 9 o'clock. And when I came back at noon, when I left, my mom was chopping onions for the biryani. And when I came back 3 hours later, she was still chopping onions. And at that point, I was just like, this is such a waste of your time on a Sunday morning, because you have better ways to spend it, because none of the help had come at that point or anything. So she said, you know what, I said, you'll get onions in the market. She said, I'm cutting it so that I can fry it. So I said, you'll get fried onions in the market also. Why haven't you looked? And she's like, are you stupid? Of course I've looked and all. Check it. So I checked on Google, and turned out there was no such product. And that got us thinking of, hey, if this could be used so much on one Sunday in our house, maybe there's a market for it in other households as well, because biryani is very popular, right? So that's where the idea sparked from. That's where the idea started, and that's where we took off, trying to find housewives or women in households who would be our customers in the future.
Right. So that's also been quite a journey. From what I know and from what I've heard your mom tell me, it started from your own kitchen first, right?
Definitely.
So there's like a lot of fried onions in the kitchen first, and then
on
you
the table. They'll have to throw him out.
Before the problem got
there
better,
were a lot of
it got
tears in
a
the
lot.
house first.
Before it got better, it got much worse. Because then once we decided to make it try it out as a business, then we had to cook copious amounts of fried onions at home, which made it much worse for at least 2 or 3 months. And we were just figuring out what was the recipe and is there a market. And I had come from a background of many failed businesses before this.
Yes, we're going to talk about that in a bit. Yeah.
I myself was skeptical about this business idea or this as a business itself. So I was kind of being on the back foot, trying to see if we could figure out some validations before actually taking it to market.
Right.
And we happened to do a food festival called Upper Crust in December 2014. Luckily, a lot of things worked out, aligned at the right point.
And you also had Cafe Britannia.
Yeah. Eventually, we got to Mr. Kohinoor as well and Cafe Britannia. But again, that was after 1 year of me consistently calling him every Saturday morning and asking him, "Sir, will you try my onions?" And the answer was no for 1 year.
Right.
And I still called that 1 week after that 1 year or whatever.
So ये persistence कहाँ से आता है?
Because when you have no option, this was like I said, this was like she had no option when she started when she started Forshi for the first time. For me, I had no option because no one would give me a job because I was a college dropout, which was a huge stigma that you're a college dropout, so you don't know anything. Secondly, I wanted to switch industries from transport into something else because I had a 7-year background working operations in transport.
Right.
But no one gave me the credit for those 7 years. They said you have to start from zero. So I said, forget it. Yeah, if I'm starting everything from zero, I'll try and raise my own company.
Right.
And then 6 times I failed at that as well. So any savings I may have had I learned a lot.
Right.
That's all. My learnings are phenomenal.
I'm sure
from my failures.
you've also learned a lot about how the society has so many cliches around a man being settled in life.
Oh yeah.
Right? आप पढ़ाई पूरी कर लो. Make sure you have the right job so that you get settled. And also, if we were to deep dive a little bit in your situation with your mom trying to raise 3 sons, you were the oldest over there.
Yeah.
This show is about also understanding the pressures that both genders go through because of the conditioning of the society. What were some of your pressures as a man and the oldest boy in the house?
So I guess as the oldest sibling, you're always more responsible or more present to and aware of your younger brother's needs and all those things. So I quite frankly I never considered any other options, even when I took on science, engineering, it was just...
Oh, you are an engineering dropout?
I dropped out of engineering.
This is the second guest on my show. A man who says, Zabardasti engineering nahi karna tha, chhod diya.
I mean, there was no Zabardasti. There was no Zabardasti from my parents, but it was just... I guess I saw my friends taking engineering.
No, so the Zabardasti is a lot of pressure, peer pressure from
peer
society
pressure.
as
Society
well.
will do engineering or whatever.
Right.
But... a lot of the cliches that I really struggled with was being a college dropout. And that really...
how do people perceive a man who's dropping out from college or is not
it was I did this in 2007, so it was draconian times. I would never be considered for any job today. If we were living in those same times. I have given at least 100 interviews. When the last stage of the interview, they've told me that, I'm sorry, sir, you don't have a degree, so we can't consider you for this position. Right. And I was like, you could have told me that in the first round. I wouldn't have stayed around here for 2 hours. Right. So, it was difficult. But times have changed a lot, in accordance to that. And, as a man, I would say, so I have a lot of, currently I have female business partners as well.
Right.
So when I see... sometimes it's much easier for me to get things done just because of the fact I'm a man and there's no other qualifying factor for that.
Can you please elaborate that?
So I'll give you an example, right? Yeah. So I run a company called, I'm an investor in a company called EFG Store. Okay, EFG Store is a merchandising company. It's run by this dynamic 22-year-old entrepreneur, Tanisha.
What kind of merchandise do you
sell?
So
we have licensed merchandise from Disney, Star Wars, Marvel.
Oh, lovely.
Warner Brothers,
and where do we
Friends,
find
everywhere.
These things? Okay.
In Hamleys right now, Shopper Stop, Pantaloons in the future, online, everywhere.
Okay.
And so you'll still be surprised that to close a deal, to close a sales call, no one, not anyone from any organization, unless it's a female sitting on the other side, will deal with Tanisha. I have to be the one who's doing the negotiations, and they just don't deal with guys. I mean, don't deal with women.
Why?
Because traditionally sales guys have always been men.
Right.
So they are only comfortable dealing with a man in that position. Right. And me as a new business and a new company that wants to register as a vendor, like I will do anything to get registered, right? I would make that circumstance most preferable towards me.
Right.
So obviously we put a man in front of but that's the market dynamics of it. Like it's not even by choice. It's by like, if I want my company to do its best, then this is the decision that I should automatically be making. And we do discuss it amongst ourselves, Tanisha and I also. And it is a real thing that exists.
It's a real cliche that exists.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, we're going to talk about many more cliches in the next round of conversation. Sure. I want to know, what was it growing up with a mom that was so enterprising and, that was breaking cliches right from driving this mini bus with children to building the empire, and what kind of an effect did it have on you? Because through this show, we want to talk about why parenting is so important around breaking stereotypes. So stay with me. This is Almas Virani on Beyond Cliché.
Hey everybody, welcome to another awesome week on the IVM Podcast Network. I hope you're all safe this week. Coronavirus hasn't stopped us here at IVM yet, and it is our 5th anniversary. You should be aware of that, and we'd like to thank ourselves for that. We'd like to thank our sponsors this week, HDFC Life and Paytm Money. Sponsors make this stuff possible. If you work for a brand which you think would benefit from sponsoring the show on IVM, please do reach out to us. We appreciate that. On Advertising is Dead, Varun is joined by Sarvesh Shashi, founder and CEO at Sarva, to talk about how he got into yoga, his Guruji's 7-year challenge for him, and how Jennifer Lopez, yes, the Jennifer Lopez, ended up investing in his dream. On IVM Likes, Alika, Antriksh and Sumit talk about some weird and bizarre shows and movies that they've seen. Uncle Please Sit just launched last week. On the first episode, Joel and Tushar debunk some common myths around the world middle class in their unique and satirical way. This week, listen to them talk about food and all the disinformation around it. On Geek Fruit, Tejas and Dinkar just saw Pixar's new movie Onward. Tune in to find out what they thought of it. On Absolutely Right, Aditi is joined by Rachel Lopez. They dive into her personality by analyzing her handwriting. On the Empowering series, Zarina is joined by Rohit Taparia, Vice President of Isprava and Lohono Stays. They talk about the journey of an entrepreneur in the luxury home segment. And with that, let's get you back to your shows.
Hello and welcome back to Beyond Cliché. This is Almaz, and with me in the studio today are Revathi and Satyajit Roy. So Revathi, we're going to have a little conversation around being a single parent and raising 3 boys. And there are a lot of cliches around boys. Boys don't cry. Boys shouldn't be properly spoon fed. They're told that you need to pick up a job. There's a lot of conditioning around raising them in a certain way so that they are ready to face the world. But when it comes to the house, they're not very independent. How was your experience raising 3 boys? How did you raise them? Because you're such a great example of breaking stereotypes.
So there was no plan to create an empire or create this business. I think raising children, first of all, is very, very natural to a woman. So you're not thinking of it as a project.
Correct.
So the children are there and they're growing up, and I think I had a lot of support from my in-laws who were there, especially for my youngest one. Literally, he was brought up by them.
How old was he when
my husband died? He was 9. Sorry, he was 9 years old. So literally, right from the time he was born, they were taking care of him because I was working all the time. And so a cliche, as in, because there was no girl at home, there was no such thing as ladki ye karegi, ladka ye karega.
Correct.
So that differentiation was never there because all I saw was guys.
Right.
I mean, I saw boys around, and I saw at least till the 10th, 11th standard, till Satyajit reached his school and stuff like that. I used to see a lot of, boys only in the house.
Right.
They are friends, and I started seeing girls come into the house after he started going to college.
Right.
Because then there were girls, there were co-ed, there was
all put us in all boys school. You know what to do.
Yeah, and they were in an all boys school. So I think, to kind of describe it as cliched things for what boys do or what they should do. I personally always felt, and this is not of today, but I always said right since I was in college that being financially independent is as important for a girl as it is for a boy.
Right.
So there was no question of the fact that these boys have to go out and stand on their own feet. Everybody has to.
Right.
I mean, today if you want to really, go to the parlor and, wash your hair, you feel happier if it's your own money.
Correct.
I mean, you don't have to tell somebody what you've done with the money.
Correct.
So I'm sure that that independence part of it, or empowering yourself. So this empowerment is more often than not, no. In fact, 9 out of 10 times linked with women.
Right.
But I feel it's gender agnostic.
Absolutely.
So empowerment is really, the boy also has to be empowered.
Yes, and empowered to maybe even pick up the glass and put it on the kitchen table and bring food on the table.
I mean, it's not that gender plays. See, at least in our kind of, who've been privileged, we have some kind of understanding and a better understanding of the fact that it's not about gender. So they've never been, because there was no girl at home, only I had a niece at home who was also like a tomboy. So she's grown up with 3 boys. So there was no way that she could behave ladylike. So there was more,
Do your boys cry?
Tobu used to cry, my little one. Yeah.
Okay, so let's ask the Onion Night man, the man who's...
How much I cried. I've cried more than anyone I know. Come to my factory, you'll find out.
You're putting your tear glands to good use.
Yeah.
So,
no, but honestly, like, I do... If I see any dog die in any movie, I will burst into tears. Like, I'll just weep. There's no, like... I don't care who's looking. It's really sad when dogs get killed in movies, so I can't handle myself. There are some things that do make me cry.
Right.
But
is it like, so we hear this a lot. Is it overrated or actually log bolte hain kya ladki jaisa ro raha hai? Does that happen? Did it ever happen with you?
I mean...
Is it like a given that boys don't cry? What
maybe
is it?
In school and all it used to happen, but that was like a long time ago. It was a different time as well. Like we are now in very different times as to when I went to school. So at that time there was no like... no one was speaking about privilege or, gender equality even. Or it was not like this. Now the kind of circumstances are that we are more aware of what is okay and not okay.
Right.
And... yeah, maybe while growing up, but that's general boy bullying in a boys' school, like that is something you can't avoid.
That happens? That's a real thing?
Yeah. That used to happen, and like you get teased if you cry. Back then, like it was different.
Right.
But now I don't think I don't know.
Children are very smart nowadays.
These people are way more like informed about things.
Well, you'll be surprised. Some cliches are so deep.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, we're still trying to break them. So, Satyajit, what was your experience growing up with a progressive mom who at the age of 47 decided to build an empire on her own?
Oh, both my parents were super liberal from the beginning.
So how did that impact your life?
Superbly now. But like when I was growing up, I thought they were nuts because they never pushed us towards studies. In fact, it was the opposite. We used to play tabla, so my dad was like, you play for 2-3 hours and you become a bandwala in some marriage band.
Wow.
We'll be very happy if you do that. And I was like, those are not my ambitions. I want to like go into science and engineering and all that. And he was like, no, you do this, you'll be happier. But
ऐसा भी होता है.
Of course. Like for us, it was even we were pushed to like, and they almost made me bunk like they made me bunk my first year's, almost made me bunk my physics exam because they were like, we got tickets to India West Indies in Wankhede. To bunk your exam and come to Wankhede. And I was like, no, my exam is there. I'm not bunking it. That's not going to happen. So
you had very understanding and liberal parents.
They were different. Like it was never like studies we did decently well enough that no one really had to, no one really bothered. At the end of the day, it was about getting into the right college and like, kind of figuring out what you want to do. My dad was always he had a business of his own. My mom used to work that time as well. So like they were always working. There was no scenario at home where there was, you were often at home alone on the evenings and all. But
now why I ask you is because usually a lot of men are not privileged enough to experiment so much in life.
Oh yeah.
And you've had that luxury to experiment with, I don't know if it's been a luxury, but I'm just saying.
No, it's definitely a privilege and a luxury to have that, to have so many tries at entrepreneurship. It's the financial cost, obviously, we know about, but like there's a huge mental cost that goes into failing. Right?
And if you're a man, then the pressure to succeed at a venture or doing something is also equally high, isn't it?
So I would say like 3 ventures in, everything got shed. Like I had no more inhibitions about failing at all. I said, you know what, I don't care I have to make something of myself that I am proud of. Before anyone else can be proud of me, at least I have to be proud of what I do. Am I like living up to my full potential, or am I just not connecting with the world in a wrong way?
So you had the space to sort of experiment for yourself and see where things are going.
5 failed companies in, I had experimented enough. That's quite a bit of experimentation.
That's a lot. And why I keep kind of pressing this question is because if you had a different setup, let's say you had this pressure of taking on a family business, which is so much for men these days, with big companies. Or if you had a situation where your parents said, nahi, aapko naukri, padhai karke naukri karni hi hai. There are so many boys out there that are forced engineers and doctors. Yeah. But you didn't have that kind of a situation.
I did not have that pressure. So I'm very privileged in that way. Because
you can say thank you, Mom.
Thanks,
by the way.
Mom. Thank you very much.
So would you say parenting plays a role in making sure that you're able to experiment with your life as a man?
Definitely, it plays a huge role if there's support from home. Just support for being a human. Like sometimes it's just conditional on you passing this exam or getting these many marks or whatever. But like, what if you can't?
Ecosystem. The ecosystem at home really has to be that of encouragement.
And it can be as diverse. If you look at my 2 brothers and me, we are in 3 completely diverse fields. Like we grew up in the same house.
Yeah, so it's not just his story. No. Even the other 2 are experimenting with what they think they'd be best at. And they found their own niche and calling.
The truth is, like, we know by watching Mom that anything that is going to reach anywhere is going to take a tremendous amount of hard work.
Yeah, it takes a lot of time.
So that is something that we are aware of. Like, that's something that maybe other millennials may not be aware of because they've not seen the time and sweat and effort put into something actually becoming anything. So we know that it's a long way ahead. The battle is uphill and all those things are kind of considered. So there's some sort of self-awareness when we even run our companies. And even we understand, like, because I've shut 5 companies, I've also known when to stop, right? It's not that I've just gone on and on with my idea.
But the support and the encouragement from a parent who's anyway liberal and
plays a huge part.
I think, a
positive atmosphere
it works the other way as well. I mean, today I was a single parent. So the kids were always very encouraging of whatever I did. They were like, yeah, go do it. I've also failed many, many times.
But weren't you scared? I have 3 children. What if I fail?
But there was no choice, no? What was the success guaranteed to me if I had not done it?
Right.
I didn't know what was the other success that... So just this morning, somebody was asking me, so what do you feel about, you've had success now, you've had, a lot of things which are going your way. And can you keep your balance about being humble? Generally, if somebody asked me a question. And I really think that if you navigate yourself through power, success, money and fame and keep yourself balanced, there's no bigger maturity that you can show.
Absolutely.
So I think it's very important. It's all temporary, What are we taking this permanency for?
Absolutely.
It's there today, it may not be there tomorrow. And I've seen it.
Correct.
I've seen everything I had for me and then everything went away.
So they say everything is a test of character. When you have nothing and when you have everything.
Right. And I think if these are the values that if you're navigating yourself through that, your children are watching you. So there's nothing other than this that they can imbibe because this is what they're watching. They've not seen arrogance. They've not seen those kind of attitudes. So I think we have to, all of us had to support each other because there were very trying times, very, very trying times.
I can totally understand. Yeah.
When there was no food in the house, there was, I've sold newspapers and got money to buy some food. So that was also a situation. But we survived and we thrived and we are here.
And you're one heck of a family. Right. So we're going to continue this conversation to know more about some cliches as a single parent. And I have a question for you. I'm sure no one's asked you this before. It'll be unique. Would your journey have been different if you had 3 girls, you had 3 boys? अगर 3 लड़कियां होती तो क्या आपकी जर्नी अलग होती?
So I will put a question before this. Okay, so does a woman get up and decide that she wants to do something in life only when she's struck with a crisis? It's a horrible thing to do. I think, ask myself, would I have done what I have done had my husband been alive? Now to come to your 3 girls. Okay. Again, a question which is like a khayali pulao right now to me. Because I don't know what it is to have 3 girls. But I guess the problems as a parent, which are there with a girl child, are a little quite different. Because you would worry more if she's out the whole night than a boy being out the whole night. You'd worry that, is she coming back alone? Is she drunk? Is she coming back with a drunken guy? Who's dropping her? What happens? And you hear of so many bad incidents and stuff like that. So the equation is very different. But I guess I often speak to a lot of friends of mine and say, so you have girls and is it different? And also being a single parent. So there are 2 things which I always ask them. Having boys is different and having a single parent. So to the second question, they always tell me, don't worry, makes no difference even if there are 2 parents, because children are children. So it really doesn't make a difference. So they're not going to sit at home because there are 2 parents as against going out because there's a single parent. So that is never going to happen. They will still, enjoy themselves, go out. And why not? And that's the only way to grow. I don't think, sitting at home, you can evolve and transform and educate yourself as much as you go out and you do. The more people you meet, the more you're going to learn. You'll make your mistakes.
Right. But so as a single parent of 3 boys, what were some of your biggest challenges?
See, first of all, I was the only child. Girl. Conservative parents. So for me, and my late night was 9:30 in the night.
Oh, okay.
I come from a very middle class family. 9:30 you have to be home. Even if I studied in St. Xavier's and all that, 9:30 was my deadline. These boys start going out at 11 o'clock at night. They're nocturnal. So that's a huge shock, So by the time the shock started coming with Satyajit, because he was the first one.
Right.
So everything got better for the second one. Third one, we don't even know what's happening,
Right.
So he bore the most of it.
As most first childs do.
As most first childs.
All first siblings.
I think first siblings are always
This
like
unfortunate.
I'm sure there is a deep story there, Satyajit. The first child in this setup with such a dynamic mom. I'm sure you've had one hell of a journey.
Even in fact, when my husband was there, I was the one who was awake. So there's some story around that. So my husband we were waiting at home for him. And he was somewhere. And so we called him to say, where are you? He said, in some building, in the building. So I told my husband, I said, he's in the building. So he said, no, he's in a building. Which means he's in some building in the city of Bombay.
Right.
And so the reaction with him was, go to sleep, he'll come. But even then, my reaction was, no, where is he? So, the reactions are very different.
Right.
So I think as a mother, you react differently. And also for me, because I've never seen boys, at home. So these boys going wild and stuff like that is very. Now
Satyajit, you've been going wild. It's for sure. You're doing so much in life.
My God, I was such a mild kid in college. Like I used to go out like one Saturday night. And basically, like you grew up in a much different time. Right? It was not the same time.
It was very different.
You must be coming home at 9:30 because everything starts at 10.
That time it was very different.
Yeah, everything opens at 11:30 now. That's
so
why
you have to, as a parent also, you have to really evolve, to deal with children of today's time. It's very different.
Oh, ask me.
It's very different.
It is a different age and world.
What I dealt with Satyajit is so different from what I deal with my youngest son. He's 10 years younger.
So did you see some stereotypes changing over a period of time as you were parenting 3 kids of different generations?
I only changed. I stopped worrying. I worry in my own way. I worry. But today, him coming back at 1-2 o'clock at night, I think is just normal.
But he lives in Bombay.
Yeah, he lives in Bombay.
He doesn't live in Nagpur. So he can... I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah, so 1-2 o'clock at night is very normal, So everything is different.
Right. But having said that, of course, I'm going to take back what you said that, had it been a girl, the challenges or whatever,
more.
The worry would have been different but I'm sure there was a different kind of worry. And a lot of this does not come from you. It is a lot of pressure around you that is built. So
don't think so. I mean, what is the pressure that my neighbor can build for me? There's no pressure that the neighbor can build for me. Your pressure is your own.
Imagine if all of us start
but
thinking
like that.
But if you're
evolved to think like that.
you're
It's
evolved
not.
to think like that.
It's not a common.
Okay, so we're gonna talk to Satya. Satya, what were some pressures you were growing up with? Yeah.
No, just generally, like my parents never put pressure on me. Didn't mean that I didn't put pressure on myself, right? Like,
so where does the pressure come from? If you don't
pressure,
get it?
like it's just your peers, like. When you're moving through life, like your friends group change a few times as per what your priorities are. So if you don't choose the right people to hang out with, you're like all messed up in the head with what is the right thing to do and the wrong thing to do. So like the pressures come from your friends, and you want to please your friends, like when you're in your teenage years or like early 20s. So you kind of do those kind of things, but as you evolve into your 30s and all, it kind of wanes off. You start making more informed decisions because your friends are smarter than the few 4-5 people, idiots that you found in college. So,
So Satyajit, there's this huge stereotype around men and responsibility. And I talk a lot about this in my show, and I write extensively about it, that traditionally the roles have been of a nurturer and a provider, man and woman. But we've kind of abused those roles in so many societies, and we've put immense amount of pressure on men to sort of take on financial responsibility. एक आदमी अगर sabbatical लेना चाहता है, तो it is a very big deal, if he's not allowed to really sit back and do nothing. What were some of your struggles from the society? So we've discovered and we've established that you had very liberal parents. There was not enough pressure from this side, and you were allowed to experiment. But what was really coming from the society back then?
So in terms of, I guess, you want to there's an aspirational life that you want to have, right? When you're in college and stuff. So those kind of things, because I dropped out of college, I couldn't kind of experience those. So those pressures, like going out with your friends, you feel you're missing out at that point in time.
But dropping out from college,
that was a huge setback for me myself, because I was a very good student, and dropping out meant that I was excluded from a lot of opportunities that I would have had if I had just completed my graduation. And huge stigma around it. Still there is a stigma around it. But honestly, I felt like, because I joined engineering, and then I found out in the first year itself that I'm going to spend 4 years like not really concentrating on what I want to learn, but learning 90% other things, and then 10% of what I want. It kind of discouraged me, like that whole system of education, and I kind of never went back to it. But that doesn't mean I'm not a learner. Like, I love to learn new things. Today, when there are courses online, I do all the courses and learn everything. But as far as responsibility, as you always you feel the pressure, Like, I don't know if girls don't feel it, but I know, like,
I'm just thinking, in your situation, if there was a girl, the pressure would have been definitely different as compared to...
It would probably have been pressure to get married, right?
To get married.
Rather than take up a job.
Right.
But I know a lot of, like, I'm blessed to have been... born in South Bombay, and I always call it my South Bombay privilege that I was born here, because like it's the most liberated way of existence in India. I feel like these kind of thoughts you don't get anywhere else in this country, and it's amazing that coming back to my point, like a lot of the girls I know, they would have like shunned the pressure to get married and taken a job and just stuck it out depending on what they want to do, because we've been born here, like we've seen all these things. A lot of single parents, unfortunately, in Bombay as well. So we've kind of seen it happen as well, right, where people choose careers over family and things like that. So
we're having a very evolved conversation from an evolved mother and son. Yes, ऐसी families भी होती हैं. You have, parents that allow their children to experiment and do things in life. And that is where the real diamond shines out. And I think kids should also be allowed to make mistakes. Revathi, with your journey, whatever you've had, having 3 boys at home and plenty of didis, back at workplace, what are some typical cliches that the society is dealing with that we need to sort of get rid of? Let's talk about the didis. What are some big cliches there? Because I know one of your biggest challenge is to get a didi to sign up. What are some cliches there?
So see, first of all, we began this conversation with saying that it's a driving and stuff is not women kind of thing. Though we've beaten the cliche, but the point is still that at that lowest end of the pyramid, there are girls who come from families where they would rather do a housemaid's job or they would do a housekeeping job, something like that. But to go out into the world and do what we are doing, it's really tough for them because they work 10 hours a day on the road. It's a very high risk job. If you categorize the jobs that are high risk, ours is one of the most high risk job because you're on the road, and which is why we do a lot of insurance and stuff for the girls. So the biggest challenge is actually to getting the girl, convincing the family and making her to retain them.
So what kind of statements do you get from families? What is...
Accident ho gaya to. Now, the point is, if you're in the kitchen and working, your hand can get burned. That's a professional hazard. So if you're on the road, you can have an accident. That's a professional hazard.
But what are some of the statements or rebuttals that you get just because they're women? What are some of the challenges?
So they keep saying that she can do another job. Why is she doing this job? Why does she have to do this job? And करना क्या है? इसको गाड़ी क्यों चलानी है? घर में बैठे. So many things they do. But there are equal and more number of people also, I must give it to them, that they have allowed their children and wives and sisters to work. So it's changing. Also, the first thing that changes, what changes is when the first check goes home. And within 4 days of them working with us, we actually give them a 3 lakh rupee family insurance. So that is now, we've just started doing that. So we also keep pivoting because we also realize that we've lost so many girls because they've just they've just gone, not worked. So now we're seeing how to retain them. So we every year we give them a incentive bonus, of equivalent to more than 1 month's salary, which keeps them going for 1 year, and they get so delighted that they, over and above the incentive that they get every month, they also get something more. Then we are just foraying into electric vehicles now.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and in fact, because our banking industry is so messed up that getting loans for the girls is virtually impossible. So we are now going to do it through the company, and they have to give us EMI like they give the banks to us. And we're just launching our EVs with almost about 50 vehicles right now. And I think that's the way to go. So we've kept... also language is a problem sometimes because if you see your parcels on e-com parcels that come to you, they're all in English. So we realized that we were not getting a lot of girls because they couldn't read.
Right.
So we got
basic education.
Basic education was not there. So they used to say they want to work, but they say हमको पढ़ना ही नहीं आता है. So now we have a software which you scan, it converts text to voice.
Oh.
In a language of your choice.
There's always a solution.
There's always a solution. So
with Revathi Roy, there's always a solution.
So we've mitigated that problem of losing girls because they cannot read English.
Right.
And that was a very big thing for us.
Right.
So for me, really my vision, my mission, my everything is to have 10,000 girls in 2 years.
Lovely.
So I just want to do that. So
and mostly the girls stay back and they're retained when they see those benefits.
They see the
change
benefits.
is visible.
See, there are other things that the society problems which they get trained a lot in we have a skilling institute, so we train them. So we are actually, it's a very inclusive kind of, invasive kind of job because they are actually going to the doorstep of somebody.
Right.
So we have to be very careful in our training when we tell them you cannot step inside.
Right.
Because then it becomes a hazard for them. So we've had a couple of incidents which have not been very good, but we're dealing with it. So, this is the society. Society will have all kinds of people. So you have to be prepared of how to handle it.
Absolutely. So there are a lot of challenges just because you have women that are in this business. It's exclusive challenges related to women there. Satyajit, if somebody would have had to pick up this crispy fried onion packet, and if they were asked, who do you think is the owner? The first thought would have been, "Arey, kisi aurat ne shuru kiya hoga business." Right? but it is you. So do people get surprised that you're in this space and you had 5 ideas before you decided this, right?
Yeah. So like I mentioned, how we stumbled into the business from our family kitchen.
No, sorry, I was just looking at the time. She has a hard stop, no?
Just
another, we're going to close,
And the real reason it's surprising is because I have no background in food. So how can you kind of start a food business if you don't...
Other than being a bong who enjoys good food.
Yeah.
So you do have experience with food.
Only eating, not Yeah, but it was very surprising to not only people who didn't know me, but people who knew me as well. Because they were like, where have you started this business from? Do you even have any interest in this? But to my...
1 second. I would like to hold on to that. So you said you have comments saying, do you even have any interest in this?
Oh yeah, definitely.
If you were a girl, do you think aisa sawal koi puchta aapse?
No.
Right?
It would be assumed, right, that I know how to cook or whatever.
Right. But a business is a business.
Yeah, a business is a business. It's irrelevant to even the founder at times. Like my business's success is dependent on the market. It has nothing to do with what I think. So if I can listen to what the market is saying, which is what we started off, right? So when I'll give you a story about when we started off. I wanted to get onto these e-commerce platforms, right? So whenever I went over there, the people they had hired to make this decision of what vegetables should be bought at home were first year MBA students.
Oh.
And guys usually. And when I'm pitching to them and I'm telling them that, you know what, this is a product that's really required in the house kitchen because it saves a lot of time. It's also much cheaper to buy the packet directly than to make fried onions on your own. So the guy sitting there, he definitely didn't understand because he's never cooked anything.
Ye kya hai?
He's like, ye kaun kharidega? This is so expensive. And I was like, what do you know, bro? Tu to abhi MBA se nikla hai. You mustn't have cooked anything. Live for 3 years alone. You'll find out how difficult it is. Ask your mom. You'll find out.
Right.
Basically.
So in your head, you wanted to do this. You were serious about it. But people around you are wondering, ye kya hai?
Because it's a new product, right? No one kind of... there's a whole lot of consumer education that needs to happen around the product to say that it's available, this is what you can use it for, this is how much money you'll save, this is how much time you'll save. So like as a business there was a lot of education to be done, but the initial response wasn't that great, especially from people who had no experience in the kitchen. On the flip side, when I did that exhibition at Upper Crust, all the South Bombay moms who attended that exhibition, they came to my stall and they told me, if you put this in Nature's Basket, I will buy one packet every 3 days, every 4 days, right? Because they knew what is the real pain of chopping and frying onions. And the husbands, on the other hand, at the same exhibition are telling me that don't make my wife more lazy. So you can see like the difference in opinion on one product from a male point of view and a female point of view from like the same household. Because one person is doing... is actively involved and one person is just passively observing, right?
Right. So, and their view on the same thing is so different because of the conditioning.
Exactly.
Right.
Because they don't know what they're only seeing the end product, no?
Right.
They've not seen the labor going through.
Yeah, that's intensive labor. I know the barista chopping is intensive labor. Right. So you had a journey from being raised by a mom who went through a lot of pain. And today, like you said, you're helping women get away with the pain.
Definitely. Definitely. That was a tagline.
Yeah.
For a long time.
Give
me tears, I'll give you smiles.
I'm sure. It's been a great conversation with Revathi and Satyajit Roy. Revathi, what is the message that you have for all the single moms there who are in the situation that you were in a while ago, trying to do something radically different and raising up children in this new age environment?
So I think women, mothers, inherently want to sacrifice their prime years of their life because they think that they would go through a lot of guilt if they tried to make a life of their own and leave children at home. Children grow up. There is no way that because you go out, the children's growth is going to be stunted. And if you think that 24 hours staying at home is going to make your child a better person, it's the most, foolish thing that one can think of. So I think it's high time that girls, women realized that there is balance. If you go out to work, it doesn't mean that you are, neglecting anybody. I say this to all my girls who are from underprivileged families where they have a different kind of an issue. There are children, they don't have help at home. So where do they leave them? And those women are not used to paying someone for a service, which we are kind of used to. We would go to a creche. I've kept my children in a creche because there was nobody to look after them at home. So I think my message really is that if you dream for yourself, there's no harm. I think you should dream. And unless you dream, there is no way that those dreams can come true.
Right.
I have always dreamt. I'm a very big man. I have a very manifestation issue. I mean, I actually can think it just happens. I don't know what's it.
Yeah.
I just think
I've personally seen that happen for you so many times.
That's why I'm very worried about thinking negative, because even that might happen. So
right.
I think it's all about dreaming and believing in yourself, because everybody, if you're woman or man, I think we all have immense potential, immense.
Right.
We're just not coming out with it. And women are very scared to say that I'm damn good at what I do. I think there's more required that to go out and say I'm damn good.
Was it difficult for you as well?
No, I'm a damn good driver.
Yes, you are. That is what changed the game for you.
Yeah,
because you believed you were a damn good driver.
I still believe there's no better driver than me in the world.
Lovely. I think the message is loud and clear. If you're good at it, say you're damn good.
Say you're damn good.
Right. And Satyajit, if you're not good at something, then what do you do? What's the message for all the boys that can't continue with engineering, that want to experiment with life? There's a huge stigma around it, like you said. What's your message to men dealing with pressures like that?
Like the title of my book, it's Live, Burn, Learn. So
yeah, tell us about the book, yeah?
It's about my journey and about how failure can lead to success. I think you can't get to success without failing.
Right.
You should be fearless, and not fearless. Fearless is a frivolent, it's such a, people use it so cavalierly, that word. Basically, you should acknowledge fear, be aware of what things are making you afraid, and then in spite of that fear, show courage and face your fears, and the result will either be you'll succeed or you'll fail. But if you don't try, you're never going to know. You're never going to have a chance at success. So don't curtail your dreams to what other people think that you should be dreaming.
Just imagine for a moment if you would have continued college with engineering.
Yeah.
Where would life have been for you now?
I mean, I don't know. It would have been a different... I always think back and think that...
We would have still been crying cutting
without...
onions.
Yeah, that's true.
Onion tears all over.
Yeah. And also, I think, if people think that there is a textbook to be followed for success, there's no textbook.
Right.
Your life is your textbook.
Right.
You have to keep making
those changes. You have the privilege of writing your own story. So
write an interesting one.
So you are interviewing a lot of stories in your podcast.
Definitely.
Talk about that.
So
we're on IVM podcast. So you got to talk about your show.
So on Paperback, we have authors, entrepreneurs, CEOs, and they share with us book recommendations and 4 or 5 books which highly impacted their life, professionally as well as personally, because we find that if you kind of listen to a conversation around a book, and you'll probably be more likely to pick up that book if something in that conversation interests you. So our podcast Paperback, which I host with my fiancé and co-host Racheta, as on IVM itself, we have an episode out every Wednesday. We have the same producer and sound person. So we're 60 episodes strong almost now, probably more when this releases.
Since we're talking about books, I think this show would be incomplete if we don't talk about who is Revathi Roy.
Oh yeah, definitely.
If you can just tell the listeners what this book is about.
So,
and how many cliches is this book talking about breaking?
So this book is amazing because it gives a real insight into my family, from my gives an insight into my dad's grandparents and my dad's parents and my mom's parents as well. And their upbringing has been quite unique in itself, and our upbringing by my mom and dad was extremely unique in the way that they brought us up. It was just giving us different values or different things to focus on. Not just marks. Like my dad used to really focus on tabla. He used to
Jo karna hai karo.
No, he was
really say music.
He was determined that if you can become an artist, there's no greater joy in life. Forget
Parents,
all...
are you listening? See, children just turn out absolutely fine if you let them do what they want to do.
Yeah, and it's my middle one is a game designer. He's a game designer. He's a gamer.
And you know what?
He's
now
doing extremely well.
But now it pays off for him 15 years or 20 after 20 years of playing. He's had a worldwide success, right? His game went number 1 across the world.
Wow.
But his game went number 1 across the world.
Can you tell us the name of the game?
It's soap cutting. It's available on Android, iPhone, iPad, everywhere. It's on the top charts everywhere. And but it's taken him 20 years of first playing. Then he used to commentate. Then he started making games. He failed in 3 companies. Then he has this company, and now they finally made it, right?
So even when he was transiting from one company to the other, I remember him coming home and telling me one day, I'm going to take a break maybe for a year, and I'm not going to be doing anything. Is that okay with you? I remember asking me that just about 2-3 years back.
And what did you say?
I said, yeah, Absolutely okay.
Wow. Now that's really important. How many parents, that are listening to this show with hands on their heart would be okay with a male child saying, "मैं घर पे बैठना चाहता हूँ एक साल." I mean, that's a huge one in the society.
And that he sat at home, but he was going to experiment with something.
Or I want to do something else.
No, gaming only. But he was just transiting from one place to the other, and he said, okay.
Right. So with a lot of support from each other, a lot can happen. A lot can happen. Yeah. What a beautiful insight into how families can be built only if they support each other and let human beings be and experiment what they really want to do. Yeah. How can we find you online? So Revathi, your Insta handle.
I have a website. Twitter. I have Insta Revathi_Roy, REVATHI_Roy. Mm-hmm. I don't know my Twitter handle. It's there.
And your website is?
www.revathiroy.com.
Okay, lovely. Satyajit, how do we find you?
You can just look for Onion Knight. You'll find me.
By the way, how did that name come about? Onion Knight. Who named you that?
I named myself because no one was giving me any titles or names. I was like, at that point, I was like, I have 5 businesses. This is the last chance. I'll name myself something now.
Yeah, but that did turn out well for your branding, for sure.
Definitely.
Right.
And you can find me if you look for Onion Knight.
Yeah, just type Onion Knight, KNIGHT. That's the knight in shining armor of Revathi Roy.
Knight in shining armor.
Right. Thank you so much for joining us today. We've had a great conversation about so many cliches from different sections of the societies. Whether it is the didis that want to go out and get independent, the kind of challenges that they face and the cliches that need to be broken there, to boys that don't want to pursue engineering and just simply want to experiment something new in life, to single moms that are struggling to build their own identity. I think one message is loud and clear here. Dream, which is what Revathi said. If you believe in a dream, you can make things happen, right? So thank you so much for joining us today. If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on social media. We're at IVM Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. And if you want to reach out to me, I am on, pretty much everywhere. You can find me on Instagram at Almas Virani _1111. I'm also on Twitter and a whole lot of other places. And do not forget to sign my petition. Like I said, we want to bring about a change in the society. Do follow my campaign, #TurnOffTheStereo. Don't turn off this stereo till you finish listening to the show. But if you believe in this cause, if you want more fathers to be a part of parenting, we've spoken so much about parenting today. We need more fathers to be a part of the journey. Please go to my petition at www.change.org/PapaPampers2. This is me, Almas, signing off in the entrepreneurship category of the Beyond Cliché podcast, only on IVM Podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
How many times have you motivated yourself to improve your sleep, or lose weight, or be more productive? How many times have you failed? Hi, my name is Ashton Doctor. Tune into my show, The Habit Coach Podcast, where we focus on creating small, tiny habits to improve your life instead of those big, impossible tasks. So make listening to me a habit every Monday, Wednesday and Friday on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com or on your favorite podcasting app.